see the most of the challenges that you're facing in regards to our healthcare system for the frail elderly that we're working with. How do you manage that? How's that working for you?
Well, it's no secret that our healthcare system is overwhelmed and broken and burdened. And unfortunately, a lot of times that means the frail elder falls between the cracks. Because a frail elder living at home has a lot of detailed needs: medication management, hydration, fall prevention. And they're in their home, and those details, unless they're being managed, can derail their desire to stay at home. So having somebody in the home that can be noticing those things makes all the difference. The doctors don't have time to manage all that details.
Yeah, you're right.
The nurses don't.
Right. They're overwhelmed.
They're overwhelmed. I've had people, doctors send a client home from a visit with totally unrealistic instructions.
Yeah.
You need to change this bandage 5 times a day. You need to put this on, that on. It's not going to happen.
And they're leaving it up to that elderly to
That's
do it.
right. That's
independently.
Right. It's not going to happen. So what happens instead is that wound gets infected. It's very hard to heal. They end up in a nursing home.
Sure.
So
could have been prevented.
Absolutely could have been prevented. Having somebody in the home 24/7, getting to know the elder, noticing the details, calling attention to them, to the right person. Hey, this isn't working.
Right.
They're not taking their meds, or they're not drinking enough fluid. They got dehydrated.
Sure.
So the healthcare system is not set up to deal with that level of detail, and that's what keeps people from going into nursing
All too
homes.
often I'm in nursing homes myself, and you've got one CNA trying to manage 10 to 12 people. They don't have time.
No.
It's just,
No.
it's not possible.
No. And you have to finesse the systems a little bit. You have to know how they work. You have to advocate for elders. Advocate, because they can't advocate for themselves. They don't know that they should, number one. They don't know how to do it, number two. And they just don't have the capacity. It's called assertiveness. We all learned assertiveness training, but that generation did not. So having somebody in the home to call the doctor and say, this doesn't seem to be working. Call attention to it. Get the attention that they need, and that's key.
Do you find that the families are strong intervention pieces, or it's 50-50? I mean,
well, the families that I work with, the reason they contact me is that they live out of state. They live out of state, or they're totally overwhelmed with their lives. They've got kids, they've got families, they've got work, they're overwhelmed. So they try, but they're limited too. And unless they can be in the home and seeing these things happen or not happen, they can't tell.
Who's watching mom at 3 a.m. when she's wall walking her way to the bathroom?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. How has this affected your business? I'm sure I would love to clone you. The need is there.
I'd love to clone me too, Gary.
I'm sure you have more business than you can handle, but you are micromanaging each case.
That's right, and that's what it takes. That's what it takes. And if I can't emphasize it enough, our healthcare system has gotten increasingly broken. I've been doing this work for 16 years, 16 years ago, there wasn't such an urgent imperative to keep people in their homes, keep them out of nursing homes. It's an urgent imperative now, and if you just look at the demographics, the number of people who are going to need this kind of help is exploding exponentially. So people are aware of that now. The adult children talk to other adult children at their work. Oh my gosh, I'm having this trouble with my mother. Me too. What are you doing? So the attention and the emphasis on keeping people at home is just growing exponentially, and it's not going to turn around.
All too often when I'm dealing one-on-one with that client, they're in denial of what's going on in their world. How do you manage that? How do you relate that to the family who can sometimes hit that stone wall? So how do you break through and try and make it clear for them?
Well, first thing I do when I start working with a client is to create a care plan. and it outlines all the things coming out of an assessment that I do that I see as issues, areas of concern.
Sure.
We write them down, you know, that slippery rug in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Medications aren't being taken. So I look at every detail
I see.
that's going to contribute to, I like to categorize it this way, their health, happiness, and safety. So any
Well put.
detail,
Yeah.
any detail.
Right.
I worked with a client who loved to have her salads at dinner, and she loved avocados in the salads. So I became the avocado manager. When I saw that an avocado on the counter was going bad, we put it in the fridge. So that
Sure.
contributed to her health and her
Right.
happiness. So unless all those things are being addressed, something is going to fall down.
Sure.
Another caregiver, a client had a caregiver that came in and would turn on the TV first thing when she showed up.
Ah,
The client hated TV.
sure.
She
Sure.
didn't want to say anything, but she was getting more and more depressed,
Right. Of course.
feeling out of control of her environment. So,
Yeah.
simple solution. Ask the caregiver, please don't watch the TV. Read the newspaper instead. And they did.
yeah.
And they both enjoyed it.
And that's part of your job. I know you have to oversee this, but it's instilling that feeling of independence, that you're still in the driver's seat. This is your home.
Yes, I call it reasonable self-determination.
Wow.
And that's
Love
what
it.
I offer the elders.
Right.
And that can change in a heartbeat, literally. What was reasonable this morning may not be reasonable this afternoon.
Got it.
But that's the road we walk. I
Sure.
walk with families on that fine line every day,
Sure.
constantly assessing, constantly being in contact with them, making notes, talking to the caregivers, because things can shift
Change
very
constantly.
quickly. Yeah,
Like
but
the weather.
reasonable self-determination.
Yeah.
That's one of my basic philosophy.
And that's something that we do with our caregivers. We instill that sense of partnership, that you're working with the client, you're in the client's home, treat them with respect and honor their wishes. Try to work as closely with the case manager as you possibly can, because you know the patient better than anybody. We're going to help you be the eyes and ears when you're not there.
Yeah.
So when you're looking for an agency such as FCP, what are some of the things that would help you make that decision on choosing the right company?
Well, just the concept of 24-hour live-in care is not that common in my area. We have lots of agencies that offer care by the hour,
Sure.
but you don't get that consistency along the way of getting one person.
I like to say you see more of a revolving door of
Exactly. And
Two
is
to
any
three
one of those people, 4 or 5 people that may come into the home in a week, is any one of those going to feel responsible for taking care of these details? No.
no. I know.
So the details fall between the cracks, and the person's desire to stay home is derailed.
What I like to say when I'm working with families is, because we're living in the home for 24 hours, we really get to know the patient.
Yes.
We understand the rhythm of the day. After 2 or 3 days, we know that at a certain time of the day, you're looking for that cup of tea or you're ready for your nap. So that's the continuity and consistency that FCP can bring to the table.
Yeah. I see the live-in care model being the answer to this epidemic of people going into nursing homes.
Sure.
Because it just, you can't replace it. You can't
Right.
replace the kind
There
of
is no
attention.
substitute for
No.
boots on the ground, so to
Right,
speak.
right,
And
right.
it's that continuity of that same person. I like to say that's putting mom to bed is waking her up and making breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
So we're eyeballing what's going on throughout the day. If she's spiking a fever, if she's off her feed, so to speak, we're there to notify families that something is amiss.
Right,
So,
right,
sure.
right. So in the world of geriatric care management, going forward, I kind of couldn't do this without this
Right.
opportunity. I couldn't do it well. It would make my work 1,000 times more difficult,
Right.
because I'm telling this caregiver and then another one,
Oh, yeah.
and then they put in a new one who hasn't known the client.
Yeah.
So, going forward in this marketplace, which is just growing exponentially, I think 24/7 care is the answer to making it work.
I think as a concept, the company was ahead of the curve years ago. We've been in business for 25 and going on plus years. We're seeing that sense of urgency now from nursing homes and hospitals to get them through the system and get them home as quickly as they can. They're thinking that there's a panacea of community-based healthcare out there, but it's still very fractured. And it boils down to that detail that we're looking for in the home.
Right, right.
And I love the way that you put it out there, and you simplify it for us to think about, because it's a deck of cards, and it doesn't take much for that deck of cards to come tumbling down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Any examples of some of our successes that we've had with you in the past?
Well, I have a wonderful situation going on right now, actually, that you set up with me, Gary, and
How's that working out?
it's working out brilliantly.
Wonderful.
The client had a range of caregivers coming in to cover 24/7 care.
I remember that.
She probably saw 8 or 10 different people in a week.
Yes,
And
yeah.
one of the agencies couldn't supply a caregiver.
Mm.
She needs 24/7 attention.
Sure.
And the agency called her adult children in Maine
Yeah.
and said, we don't have anybody to send.
All too often I hear that. That's,
Do you want
that's
to
somebody else's phone.
I don't know whose phone that is.
Mine.
Oh, sorry.
Is any cases that we've been working with you in the past?
Yeah, I'm actually involved in a case right now that you just set up with
yes.
me a
Yeah,
couple
of
months
course.
ago.
Yeah.
This was a 93-year-old lady who really needed 24/7 care.
Mm-hmm.
She had 3 different agencies, local by the hour agencies working with her, and probably 10 or 12 different people coming in
I remember it.
every week.
Of course.
And one agency called her son in Maine, 5 hours away, one day and said, we don't have anybody to come.
Yeah.
And that's simply not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And that's kind of what's happening in the market of the agencies, the hourly agencies. So we brought in a caregiver, and I know that you and your company did backflips to make this happen for her.
Yeah.
And she was skeptical. She was skeptical. She liked the attention she was getting from 10 different people.
Yeah. She was the
Um,
queen.
She was the queen.
Yeah.
They were taking her on trips and buying her food, and she was having a great old time. And
I remember her having her feet rubbed.
yes, somebody was rubbing
Rubbing
her
her
feet,
feet
and
all the
somebody was
time.
doing this and that. And so I had a bit of a challenge convincing her, but I went to this idea that we're all here supporting you in your goal to stay in your home.
Sure.
And the hourly caregiver situation is not working. It's not working, and it's threatening your goal to stay at home.
Right.
So we're going to try this.
Right.
Well, within about 3 weeks, she is in love with this caregiver.
Wonderful.
And I have seen that before with
Sure.
your company.
Yes.
And I told her from the beginning that that's probably what would happen. Give this a try, and I'm here to tell you that most often in these situations, what I see is the caregiver becoming a very close family friend.
Exactly.
Somebody who is a loving companion to you, who you're going to enjoy, and sure enough, it happened. She's got this caregiver who she adores.
Yeah.
They take trips to Vermont, they go out for coffee,
Good for them.
they play games, and so I'm tempted to say I told you this would happen, but I won't.
I can
because
remember the initial visit.
I just knew it would. I just knew it would because I've been involved with
Well,
your-
that wall of resistance that I initially see as you as well
Sure.
comes down in time. It doesn't happen. You can't microwave it, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And I tell families that it is a process.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, we start out as a stranger in the room, and most people are very resistant to that. But in a couple days, that stranger becomes more of a friend. And after 2 or 3 weeks, you can't live without us.
Yes.
But it's a process, and let it take its time.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you'll be there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, you put 2 people in a home together all of a sudden, 2 strangers.
yeah.
It's just natural that it's going to take some time to figure out
Yes.
how to get along. That's just
Exactly.
natural in any situation.
Right.
But I've seen it happen so many times successfully that I just trust in it now, and I
Yeah.
assure them, give
Thank
this
you.
some time. I think you'll
Yeah.
be glad for this, and it will allow you to stay in your home.
Well,
That's the goal.
You're one of my prized referral sources. So.
Well, thank you. And
But
you are too. Ditto.
But, yeah, we do what we have to do because we've seen plenty of challenging cases.
Yeah.
But we know that
Yeah,
given the time, it will work itself out.
it does. It
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
So, what can we do? This is one of the questions that I thought about to make your life a little easier, to be more productive. Is there anything as a company, because we try to cover all the bases, but it's really dependent upon the caregiver. Is there anything that you see that we might do that we could be better at? And I don't know, coming from your side.
Sure. Well, as a geriatric care manager, as we've been talking about, I handle a lot of details. And families contact me because there are problems. They don't contact me because things are simple.
Yeah.
They contact me because things are complicated.
Sure.
So I'm brought in to try to settle things down, create a care plan, manage the care plan.
Right.
And so, in a sense, I make you guys' job easier.
Yeah, and we appreciate that.
Yeah,
We
and it's
appreciate
true with doctors too. Doctors used to be very intimidated by a care manager.
Oh,
They
sure.
thought you're in there to judge them. Now they think, oh gosh, good, she's got a care manager.
Right.
I'm not going to have to make
Micromanage
15
every little
calls a
thing.
day.
Yes,
Yeah, so
sure.
they welcome our presence.
Nice.
So, as a group, geriatric care managers work with complex cases,
Yeah.
but they are going to make your life simpler, and they're going to make the placement of a caregiver
Mm-hmm.
successful because they can go in and smooth things over. So
You're a point person. That's
Yeah.
what I tell the caregiver when she or he is on site.
yes, and I
When
do
issues
too.
arise, you are the point person
Right,
for that.
right,
Yeah.
right. So what I would ask is that your home office get to know the role of a care manager more,
Sure.
what we do, how we do it,
Mhm.
so that when we need to call there and get support, they know
Exactly.
that we're very
Yes.
important to this case. We are the ones actually making it sustainable, making
Right.
it happen.
Yeah.
And if they can be very responsive to us, call us back, be sure they know what we need, understand the level of detail that we're dealing
Yeah.
with, that would be really helpful.
We have implemented field managers in each of the territories.
Mm-hmm.
How has that worked for you?
That's working well. That's
Really?
really important.
Right. I've
Yeah.
got a wonderful gentleman that's covering my territory.
Right.
We communicate almost every day
Mhm.
on what's going on. If something seems to hit a bump in the road, he's calling the office, he's calling you.
Yeah,
Um,
I've spoken to him. He's been really helpful.
That's great.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
because he's busy, so
Yeah,
we keep
yeah,
him that way.
Yeah, but again, it's the details.
Exactly.
It's the details. A
Yeah.
detail can catch you up short in a minute
And they can change.
and derail the whole situation.
Exactly.
So if somebody's not managing the details,
Right. And I'm assuming that when you're going over the care plan with our caregivers, these are the little things that you're stressing.
yes.
Right. Wonderful. And you've had, I would say, very good luck with our caregivers because
Yes.
we go through a vetting process. So we're trying to get the best of the best because we know the urgency and the need. So I feel that some of the caregivers we put in place, not always is it a perfect fit, but as a responsive company, we'll do and make changes whenever necessary. So I think our success rate with you has been pretty high. I like the caregivers that we've been placing. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, dealing with the details, I have had the occasion to ask your company for specific things in a caregiver.
Sure.
Could we have someone who's a little older? Could we have someone who likes to cook? Not necessarily a gourmet cook, but somebody who gets pleasure in it. Could we have someone who drives?
Yes.
Could we have someone who doesn't smoke, which I think is pretty universal with all
Right.
your people?
Yeah.
Could we have someone who's going to be able to speak fluently with the caregiver
Sure.
and with me?
Sure.
Could we have someone who's not terribly loud or outgoing or chatty all the time?
Right, right.
I've had clients who like their quiet,
Sure,
who aren't
sure.
chatty themselves, so they don't want someone in their home who's just going to be
They don't want somebody shadowing or hovering.
or
Yeah,
hovering.
yeah.
Could we? And you've responded.
Thank you.
And I think that's pretty incredible. I know how many caregivers you have
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how many clients you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
with the company as
We
a
tr-
whole. So
yeah.
to be able to respond to those things, again, it's the details. You put a caregiver who's really chatty and loud in with a very quiet, mild elder,
It's not going to work.
it's not going to work. The
Yeah.
elder's going to get more and more depressed. They don't want to say anything. They don't
Right.
want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
But they're thinking, I can't stand this. I can't stand another day with this person just talking at me all
Sure.
day.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing
Yeah.
that
I feel pretty strongly that we do a wonderful job when it comes to managing those details.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not perfect. I'm never going to say we're perfect. So
No.
if changes have to be made, we make them.
perfection is boring, Gary. So they say.
We'll never achieve it, I guess.
No, perfection is an illusion.
We're going to call it right there.